Start. Okay, awesome. So hello everyone, I'm Emily and I'm a second-year computer science student at the University of Waterloo. In case you want to check, this is my website. And so yeah, I'm a CS student I'm current CS student at the University of Waterloo. I'm not seeking for a fall 2022 internship, but yes. So today I'm going to be presenting, well, I'm going to be teaching you guys HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let's start the slideshow. Okay, I have so many things around me. I'm gonna close the chat. Okay, so basically, first of all, how do websites work? Well, whenever you want to access a website, usually you type in an address of like the website you want to access. So for example, facebook.com, and then the browser is going to fetch you the page, the HTML page, and it's going to render it for you so that it looks like you're going to see the page in your browser. So usually websites are built in 3 layers. So the first layer is HTML. HTML is essentially the structure of your website. So you can think of it as like how you define all the elements that you want to have in your website. So for example, like you want to have a nav bar, you want to have a footer, you want to have links, you want to have images. This is where you define this in HTML. In CSS, CSS is used for presentation, so for formatting to make your website look pretty, essentially. And then finally, we have JavaScript. And JavaScript is for logic and behavior, so to make your website interactive so that people, when they go on your website, they can click on buttons, things happen, and it's dynamic. Oh yeah, so in this web workshop, we're going to be using web developer tools. I'm not going to cover that right now. And also in this workshop, I'm going to attempt to walk you through the creation of a website. So suppose we have a restaurant called El Pescado Contento, and we're going to create a website for them. So the features that they're going to need is a navigation bar. They're going to need a menu listing food items, and they also need a place where to check out the food items that they bought. So just to show, this is like the final product. I don't think I'm going to have time to cover. It's probably going to go over time, but this is a bit of the final product. It doesn't look perfect, I know. It's built very rapidly, but as you can see, what you can do here is you can click on these button, add to cart. It's going to add the item to the cart, and then the total is going to compute the amount of all the items that you added to the cart, and then you can press checkout, pay, and then it just empties your basket and like resets the total to 0. So yes, that's essentially it. Okay, yeah, need to admit everyone who's coming in. Yes, so before we do that, make sure to have a Replit account. So Repl, I call it Replit, REPLIT, or Replit.com, whatever. And what you're going to do is you can go and create a new project, and you can use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I already have a bunch of those replets using the template, but if you don't have that yet, you can click on the plus button and then search for a template, and we're going to click on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then for the title, you can just set it to whatever name you want. So like, let's say Learnathon22 workshop, although I have something already like that, but like, yeah. And then you can create that replit. And as you can see, this automatically creates, it puts us in this thing. So as you can see here, we have a file, a navigation file view here, and we have the text editor, and finally we have the output. So this is like how our website is going to look like. And then we have name of the replit and whatnot. So here in our file navigation, we have 3 files. We have index.html, script.js, style.css, and as you can guess, each of these files correspond to a language. So like there's index.html, which is a file that has code that is written in HTML. Script.js has code, it's empty, but it's supposed to contain JavaScript code, and style.css has contains CSS code. So, and if you want to run this, you can just click on run, and then you can see, oh wow, it prints hello world for us. And another useful tool for this, you can also click on this open new tab, so you can view it on a whole new tab. And I don't care about the security thing. Please let me go through, accept the risk and continue. Okay, and then you can see this is the same thing here, but it's just that we have a bigger view of things. All right. So yes. Okay. Now let's go back to our slides, and we're going to go to HTML. So what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and HTML is not a programming language. It's a language that is used to display websites, as it says here. It's used to define the elements that we want to have in our website. And so it's kind of acts like a skeleton for your website of like every basic element you need, like the foundations. And if you want more decorations or to make it look cool, you need CSS and JavaScript. Okay, so essentially structure, what I mean by HTML being the thing that defines the structure of a file is that you have something that looks like this. Okay, this is not code, but this is just to give you a visualization of how it looks like. So you see that there's a bunch of like nested elements inside of each other. And so that's the whole part of HTML. And this is an example of HTML code, which we're going to write. Okay, so now I'm going to cover the general syntax of HTML. So we don't need this thing here, but we can go over here. So suppose we delete this whole text here. We're just going to start from scratch. So what I mean by syntax is think of the English language. So English language also has syntax grammar rules that you need to follow in order to make your sentences be correct. And so similarly, the same applies to HTML and all other coding languages. So for HTML, usually what we have is we have an opening tag. So we have, let's say, tag here. Okay, this auto-completed for me. But we have what we call here an opening tag. Opening tag means that, well, it's just it means that, okay, from the start of this tag, what is going to be inside here is going to be defined by that tag. So like, for example, if that tag was to be a paragraph tag, so p tag, then what is inside of this tag is going to be a paragraph. So, and the way we define this is we have these chevrons. I think they're called chevrons, I don't know. And then you have a closing tag to say, oh, this is the end of the block of paragraph. This is the end of the paragraph. And we usually denote that with, it's the same thing as this, but with a slash. And then you put whatever you want, hello world here. And then you run it, and it prints hello world. Okay, so usually in the index.html file, what you have is you start with doctype HTML. Okay, I know some of you might be typing at the same time as like you're watching. I know this is going to be hard to type, but like I have to move on with my workshop. So just rest assured, if you cannot type anything, like I have the code, the source code that I'm going to post on later on so that you can check it for yourself. So this is just the thing that we include. Don't worry too much about it. Anyways, you have HTML, and then you have the closing tag. So this tag just tells us that we're going to write an HTML file. And then after that, we have the head tag. The head tag is usually nested inside the HTML file, and head tag just essentially what we define inside of it is just information for the browser to know. So for example, one of the most common tag that you would put inside of a head tag is a title tag. A title tag defines the title of the page. So for example, here, this is a title. So like, for example, here, the title is going to be Learnathon22 workshop. And so like, let's see, we'll run this again. Okay, we might not see this here, but like if we reload this, you see here, it has now the name is Learnathon workshop, except I have too many tabs, so like you might not see the full thing. Also, please let me know if the text is like too small, because I have no idea how big the text is. Okay, well, if there's no comments, I'm going to move on. But let me know if this is too small. I can always make it bigger. Okay, now we have the body tag. Body tag defines the stuff that is actually inside of our website. So like this whole gigantic white space, this is body. Okay, so in body, what do we want? Oh yeah, so there's a bunch of common tags that you can have inside of like body, like so for example, let's say you want a header tag. A header tag is like it's like, you know, in Word, you write like heading 1, you write a title. So like this is title of the workshop. And then there's different types of heading tags. And the first one that we're going to see today is H1. So H1 is just basically means it's the largest title that you can put up here. So like, for example, if you run it, you'll see there's a title of the workshop. And also feel free to pause me or ask in the chat if you have any questions, and I'll try to answer to those. Okay, and then we have a bunch of other smaller titles and so on and so forth. By the way, also don't worry about like remembering the name of all of these tags, because I know that there's a lot of tags in HTML and I don't know all the tags either. There's just some of them that are very commonly used. But like there's one thing about it is that there's documentation written about it. So like, for example, if I want documentation, I'm going to provide the link to this, by the way. You can see all the tags, HTML elements, and there's like a lot, the documentation for all the tags. I'm just going to cover the ones that are most used. So as you can see, here we have, as you increase the number here, the title becomes smaller and smaller. And then like when it's smallest, like H1 here, it's going to be largest. Okay. Another thing, we have seen p tag. P tag stands for paragraph. So hello world, this is another paragraph. Okay, another useful thing is we can have anchor tag. So anchor tag are kind of like links. So usually, okay, so think of a tag as like a link to something, it redirects you somewhere. So like, this is, let's say, click me, okay? And then we're going to add, as you see here, I've created a space. Usually a tag is, it's like the name of the tag, and then you have like these little thing, like in this fashion, but sometimes you might want to add attributes. Attributes are like additional properties to these tags that you want to specify. So for anchor tag, usually we want to specify a href tag, href attribute. So you have href, you have the equal sign, which means that we're assigning whatever the value of this is to href. And you can also hover over the code and Replit will tell you a bit of information about what this attribute is about. So here it says, it contains a URL or a URL fragment that a hyperlink points to. So it essentially means that inside of these, by the way, make sure to include those double quotes, it's going to contain a link. So let's say we want to link it to this. We want our link to go to this web page. So we're just gonna copy paste that, run it, and then, so like if I click me, it's gonna go to this page. And then you also can make links within your website so that it goes to a page in your website and doesn't go to, because this one goes to an external website. You'd have to like have a link to an actual website. But like suppose we have another index.html file. So like not another index.html file. So let's say we have another HTML file and this one is going to be called about.html. Then in this one, suppose we have the whole HTML stuff. Okay, I'm going to skip some part, but in actual thing, you don't need to skip parts. So inside of this one, it's just going to have about me. And we're going to go here and we're going to add an href attribute. And then this href attribute, so instead of specifying a link, we're going to specify the page that we want to go to. So in this case, we're going to go to about.html. So we just write about.html. So if we refresh this and we click to go to page, it's going to go to about me. It's going to open this about me page and it's going to like display it. All right, so we have links. That is awesome. And another thing that is really useful is images. So images, the tag is different from others, as in that it's self-closing. So you don't need to write a thing like this. Like this, you don't need to write this. You just write image, like img, and then you have a slash n thing. And then this will take in a, attribute, and this attribute is called src. And src just basically you need to take a picture. So let's say we go on image.google and we search up a picture of Waterloo, because why not? Like this, we copy image link, an image tab. Make sure I get the link right. I copy this and then I yeet it there, and then we just run this, and then boom, our image is here. So obviously it's like oversized. You can even refresh this. Wait, let's go back and refresh. You see this image is like, it's gigantic. We will resize it later. Anyway, so we have images. And finally, the last tag that is really useful is div. So div is, you can think of it as like divisor or separator. And this tag is just used to like separate blocks of stuff. So like, let's say you have a group of elements you want to put in. So like this group is like, I don't know, your nav bar, and then you have another div for like another section, etc., etc. We're going to see that later. Okay, so let's delete some part of this. Also, let me know if I'm going too fast and if we need to slow down. If you guys are lost, please react with a lost emoji. Or if you're doing really great, then please react with like, I am doing great emoji. Or some kind of emoji like that on the chat if you can. All right. Okay, okay, we're doing great. Someone is doing acrobatics. All right. Oh yeah, I also forgot to ask like how everyone's experience with HTML and CSS before this workshop, but okay, it sounds like most people are doing fine. So I'm going to keep on going. Okay, so now suppose we want to recreate this website. So how do we go about that? So we need to think about and so now we're going to apply our knowledge of HTML to rewrite this thing. So we just have to basically capture the structure of the website. So what we see here is we have some very wonky ass nav bar, and we have links here. These are links. And then we have a H1, we have a heading tag, we have a paragraph, and we have a button that goes to menu. And then we have like a bunch of elements here. Don't mind this image. And then we have like the name of the meals, the price, and then we have buttons, etc., etc. Okay, now let's go ahead and create. Oh my God, wait, what? Okay, okay, oops. I think I accidentally clicked on something. Okay, I'm going to create a new replet. By the way, you guys don't have to create a new replet. If you don't want to, you can rewrite it on the same thing. I'm just going to create a new one just to make it separate. Okay, so this one is actually going to be our thing. And let's leave, okay, this is a code that is generated for us. We're just going to leave that as it is right now, and we're gonna add stuff to it. So instead of the title replet here, we're going to write the name of the restaurant, El Pescado Contento. Okay, and then inside body, we're going to write the elements that we need. So as we said, we need a nav bar. So there's a tag called nav, and I mean, you don't need nav, but I'm just gonna write nav. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot UL. Okay, UL stands for unordered list. So you can make a list of bullet points. So to make a list of bullet points, you have UL that defines an ordered list, and then you have LI. LI stands for list item, and then each list item, okay, you see there's already a bullet point here, but like, let's say I have bananas. No, we're going to actually write the thing because, so suppose this is a list of links, menu, and then checkout. So when we run this, we see there's a list of elements. Because this is an unordered list, it's going to use bullet points. You can also make ordered list, which is using OL. You replace this with an O. You run it, and then it just changes to a numbered list. So you can make 1, 2, 3. Okay, but we actually don't care, so it's going to be UL. Okay. So right now we don't care about the formatting. It's just that it looks like that. We're going to care about the formatting later on with CSS. Okay, so after we have the nav bar, and then let's say we have a H1 that says again, it's the title of this restaurant called El Pescado Contento. Then we're going to add a paragraph tag, and that paragraph tag we're going to pull. I'm just going to copy the text. And then we're going to have a button. I'm going to use an anchor tag for that one because it's going to be a link. This is going to be like, see the menu. And then finally, we have also, this is another section, by the way. So let's define a new section. Oh yeah, by the way, it's better. We're going to use div tags actually. Oh no, div. div, enter. Okay, and then we're gonna take this, copy paste, and paste it in here. All right, cool. So the reason why we put it in a div is just to separate our different sections of our website. So like, for example, we want this, like this component goes together, this goes together, and then this goes together. So we just want it to be separated just for ease of use. Okay, so now we're going to have div, and the purpose of this div is going to be to contain each food item. So like, let's say we have Angus burger, and then let's say the price is going to be this H4. It's going to be $10.99. And then we will have an A tag that's going to be our button. It's going to be like add to basket. Okay. So if you run this, you can see we have Angus burger that is for $10.99, and then we have something add to basket. The link doesn't work yet because we haven't specified an href to it, but we're going to specify that later on. So for now, we can just like grab this. This is our menu item. This is one of the menu item. We will also have French fries. You guys can add whatever you want. I'm just going to add the menu. So French fries, and finally, what do we have? It was like burritos, I think. Burritos, and let's say it's the same price. Okay, cool. So we did this part. Okay. Now, what are we going to add? Okay, so this section is done. Check marked. We're done with this, and now finally this part. So items in your basket and stuff like that. So let's define a new div. This div is going to be the section for the checkout portion. So here, checkout items in your basket. I don't know. Items in your basket. Okay, and then let's say we have an empty div here. We're going to see what we're going to use it for later. We have a H4 here that says total. For now, it's just 0.00. This is the amount of money that we're going to print. And then finally, we will have an A tag. An A tag will be the button here, checkout. So checkout. Okay, we're done with HTML for this part. So this is how we applied our HTML knowledge. Okay, now let's move on to CSS. Okay, so CSS, I hope you guys are still following and didn't fall asleep. Okay, so CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And CSS is just basically to make your website look pretty, because right now what we have here looks kind of like a Word document. It's kind of boring. So we want to like add some spice to it and like make it look pretty. So how do we write CSS? So the general syntax for CSS is that we have a selector and we have open curly braces and closing curly braces. And inside of these curly braces, we have declarations, and each declaration is composed of a property and a value. And you can see color is a property, and then you have colon, and then you have the value, which is blue. So what we're doing here is that we're essentially selecting the tag H1 to have a blue color and to have the font size of 12 pixels. Too fast? Oh, okay, I see. So I'm going to try to slow down a bit. So Okay, but David, do you get the part of, I'm going to try to slow down a bit. Okay, so where do I write CSS? So there's 3 different ways you can write CSS because, and then the one that we're going to use today is we're going to write it in a file of its own. So we're going to write in a file usually named stylesheet.css. And then the other ones you can ignore because it's going to take too much time to cover everything. Okay, so going back to the Scrap website that we have, the playground website that we have. So as you can see here, we have, again, index.html, script.js, and we have style.css. Also, if you want me to like slow down, like let me know where you are blocked at so I can maybe re-explain some stuff. Or someone else can also like help in the chat to explain some stuff. All right, so as you can see here, we have some code that is already written for us. We can yank that away. Okay, so this file here has code in CSS. So let's say we write h1, basically the code that was in the slides. So h1, open curly braces, and then inside we will write our declarations. So let's say we want this to be color blue, and then we want to have font size of 12 pixel. Okay, and then usually, so right now, even though we have we have a selector, we're selecting h1 and we're defining stuff. You can see that the h1 has not changed, right? We had an h1 right here, but the color of it is still not blue, and we don't know if the font size is 12 pixels. The reason for that is that we have not included the style sheet yet. So to include it, we will have to include it inside of the head file. So if you type in, you will need a link tag. So link will take in, it will take in a rel attribute, rel, and you write style sheet, just basically tells you that this link, that whatever we're importing from, it's going to be a style sheet. And then we have a ref attribute that specifies what CSS file we want to load in. In this case, we want to load in style.css. Style.css is here. So now if we rerun this thing, oh, you see, the title of the workshop became blue, and also like it just decreased, like the font size became so small. And yeah, so we just made this blue and we reduced the size of it. So there's a bunch of different ways you can style things. So like for text, one thing is that you can style the way you want to like align the text. So like right now, usually text is left aligned. We can center align it by using the property text align : and then we would put center. And then if you run that, oh wait, oh yeah, here it goes. This is in the center. Yeah, this is in the center. We can also right align it. Another very common thing that we do is to import a font family. So we don't want like right now the font family may look too ugly for us, or we don't want this. So actually what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up Google Fonts. So what is Google Fonts? Google Fonts is just a library full of like typeface and fonts you can search up, and it's really nice. So for this one, we're going to use Poppins because that's what Curious uses. And so you guys can just search up Google Fonts on Google, and then you can have this. And suppose we don't have this. Usually you guys start with like a blank page. You haven't selected any fonts. So like what we do is we select the style. You can select everything right away. Just basically we're selecting the style of the font that we want to import in our document so we can use this font. Okay, so here I'm just selecting different types of bold. And then what's a nice thing about Google Fonts is that it provides you the direct way you can import it inside of your HTML so that you can start using this font. So what you do is that you copy whatever is inside here. So make sure that this is selected at link. And then you can go back. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in. Actually, we can do it directly inside of our Pescado Content Tool website. So we can go here, there's title. We can hit enter. And we will paste whatever the link that they have given us. Okay, so as you may have noticed, the link that I have pasted is like right above the style sheet here. And the reason why we paste it before style sheet, before we include our CSS, is that in our CSS, we want to use the fonts. And in order to be able to use the fonts, we would have to load it before it. So this is kind of like when the computer reads this code, it will first execute this. It will first import the font. And then after that, it will use it inside the style.css. So that's why we need to include it before that. And then if you run it again, okay, we notice the font hasn't changed. And the reason is we haven't specified, we haven't written in our CSS yet. We haven't said yet that we wanted our font family to be Poppins. So in order to do that, you can select the body tag, and inside of the body curly braces, we will say font family Poppins. So notice there's a colon, and there's also, I mean, you can write it without the quotes, but I just write it with the quotes. And then you have a semicolon to end the whole thing. And then now when you run it again, ooh, notice we have something that's much better looking right now for our font. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so what's next? If we go back here, so I showed you guys how you can change the color of the text. You can also change the background of an element. So H1 is an element, and suppose we want to change the background of it. So we can use background color, the property background color, and we can, like, let's say we want to put it red. So we just type in red. And then now if we run it again, this will have a red background. Okay, this is really hard to see. Another thing we can do is we can, oh yeah, but beyond specifying the color, the font size, background color, we can also specify the width and the height. So like, for example, I want this picture to be smaller because right now it's like too large for my screen. So in order to make it smaller, I will use the property width and say pixel height 50 pixel, and then hit run. Also, please type in the chat if you're lost. Okay. Okay, now we made it like very small, but it's okay. We can change this later on. And then what else? Let's see, we covered color, we covered font family, font size. We can change the font weight. So what font weight is it's basically the how bold your text is. So like, for example, I can make my hello world text super bold. I can change it to font weight 900 and then run it here. then it's like super bold right now, even though it's just a paragraph. Okay, so we have seen this. Oh yeah, another important thing is margin border padding. So it's important to understand this concept as a web developer because you want to add spacing in your website. You don't want all your things to be cramped together. So just to explain this, I can have this screen here. Okay. So let's say I add a div. Okay, this div is not going to have anything inside. It's going to be an empty div. Okay, we go to style.css. And now we say we select tag div, and we want to make, okay, let's specify a width, because right now our div is not going to show up because we haven't put any content inside of it. So it's just like blank. So we want to give it some width and height. And then we can also add in, let's put in something bigger, shall we? And then we can add in a background color just so that we can see it for ourselves. So let's say this is yellow. Okay, now we run this, and okay, and then this is super big. I probably made it too big. 100 pixels should be fine. Okay, and then, so let's say, what is margin? So let's say we say margin to set margin to 200 pixels. What will happen? Okay, so as you notice, there's like spacing in between the document here and the actual element. And okay, now let's add some content to div. So let's say it contains hello world. Hello world. Oh, this is slow. Anyhow, so let's say we add some padding. So what will padding do? We'll just add padding 20 pixels and then run it again. Oh, look, it added some spacing around hello world. Now we have more space to breathe in. And then we also have border. Border just basically means you can define a border around the element. So suppose we want a thick border, like 5 pixel. It's going to be solid, and it's going to have the color black. And so when you run this, it's going to make a border for us. So as you can see, margin is the thing that is outside of the element. So it's the spacing that is outside of the element. We have border, which is the, well, it's just a border. And then finally, we have padding. Padding is like the space between the content of the element and the element itself. So like the spacing here. This is our content. This is the spacing. That is the padding. Okay, so now that we've seen basic properties that are commonly used in CSS, let's also note that we can have different ways of selecting elements in CSS, because sometimes we don't want all of our, like, for example, suppose we had a lot of paragraph tags. Like here, let's take this paragraph tag and let's like make like dozen copy of it. Like this. Okay. And then you see, oh my God, we have a lot of hello world. But suppose that we don't want this hello world to all have the same style. We only want one paragraph tag to have one style. So we want to select one specific element. In order to do that, we would have to add in an attribute called ID. And ID, as the name stands, is like unique identifier. You're giving an identifier to that element. So like, for example, let's say this identifier would be called red. And if we go in style.css again, And so as we've seen before, we see here we can specify, we can write style for tags, but we can also do that for IDs. So like if we're selecting ID, we have to put a hashtag before, and then we have to enter the name of the ID. So in this case, it's red. Right, let me check the chat for sanity check. Okay. Okay, so red. This basically inside of here, we're going to put color red, which is basically going to set the element with ID red to red. So if you run it, you're going to see this paragraph here is red. And you notice that the rest of the paragraphs have not changed colors because we have a unique identifier here. We're specifying the style for one element. Okay, what if we wanted to do it for many elements, but we don't necessarily want it for like all the tags? So we have classes. So classes are for specifying like if you add the class attribute, or you have a class for a, okay, I'll just show you guys an example. So like, let's say this has attribute, this has a class attribute of green, has a class name of green. We're going to randomly set some of these to green. And so if you go to style.css, and we want to say like, all the elements that have the class green are going to have the color green. So to do that, we just go into style.css, we type in .green. So dot is for specifying classes. Hashtag is for defining IDs. Okay, so here we're going to have color green. And then if we run this again, we will notice some of them are green, but not all of them are green. And so the main difference between .green and hashtag red is that, well, one is an ID and the other one is a class name. So class name are for specifying multiple items, whereas red is only like a unique identifier. So you will only have one element inside of that whole document. Inside that whole HTML document, there's only going to be one element with the ID red. And so that's the purpose of ID. All right, we're doing fine. Okay, so now that we've seen this, let's go to our El Pescado Contento website and let's style this up, make this look pretty. Okay, so first thing we can do is for the nav bar, we can add a background color for it. So we will go here. And what we want to do right now is we want to target this element. Yeah, I'm going to open this in a new tab as well, just so we can see this in full screen. So we want this part here to have a background. And we want it to have this background. So I'm just going to select the color. And so if you look at your HTML file, you will notice that, yeah, so this is a nav. So we want to select nav in this case. So nav will have background color of this. Okay. And so if we run this, oh, by the way, if you guys don't know what this is just hex code. So hex code for defining different shades of a color, because from before, I've just shown you how to like type red, green, blue, but like you can actually insert different colors, different shades of colors. Okay, so right now we have a background that is dark. Also notice that there's white space around it. How do we get rid of that white space? Well, usually for some reason, there's actually margins there's already margins that are included inside the document, which is why you see these white space here. So to get rid of those margins, we just set margin to 0 in body, and it should get rid of that. Okay, except we have some weird ass white space in front. Anyways, we can also set this to white because right now we cannot see any of the things. And also in a navigation bar, we usually don't see this bullet points, right? We just see the link, like it's displayed horizontally, not like in a column, you know? So in order to do that, what we can do is we can use a property called list. Wait, no, it's not here. We're going to use the selector navul. Navul, what it does is that it selects the UL tag inside nav, and then it basically a UL inside of nav, and then you can write the property. So we're going to write list style type node and run it. This is going to take some while to run. So like you see, we don't have those bullet points anymore. And then we can run display flex direction equals row justify content. I'm going to explain this in a while. Justify content space around something like that. Okay. So as you can see, I've written a bunch of properties here. I know that it's all new to you guys because, I mean, it's just your first time writing CSS. So, but basically what it does is that it says that we're going to display this in a flex mode. And then when we declare display flex, it's going to give us access to all these other properties that we can specify. So here we're just saying that we want this to be displayed in a row instead of a column. And then we have justify content, which means that we're going to just add space around. So that's how it's going to be spaced out. Like each element in this list are going to be spaced out like this. And then we can also add some margins, 10 pixel or so on, 20 pixel perhaps. And then, oh, no, not margins. I mean paddings. We don't want to add more white space to this. Okay. Yeah, I do notice it does take some time to load, which is, it's gonna take some time to load. Oh, look at this. Nice, nicely formatted. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I accidentally unshared my screen. Okay. Okay, so let's go back. So we still have a lot of things to style. I'm going to try to go through it as quick as possible. For this part, we want, oh yeah, another thing is that we have seen how to add a background color to our elements, right? We can add background colors. We can also add a background image to our elements. So suppose we want to add a background image for this part here, because that's what we have here, right? This is a background image, the image that is right behind this. So to do that, we will have to first, I want to make sure that I'm able to select this whole div here, so that I will be saying that, okay, this whole section will have the background image of a restaurant. So to do that, we're going to give it an ID landing. And then we go in style. And then remember, because this is an ID, which means to select an ID, we need a hashtag in front of it. Hashtag landing, and then we can put in background. Usually it's background image. and then you would put URL, and then brackets here, and then you just pick the image of a restaurant. So like in this case, let's just pick this. This one was the one that I took. And then you just paste it there. And we want to specify a few other things. So for example, background, we'll repeat. Background size, cover. Okay, and then as you can see, there's like a bit of the background. It's kind of it's cut off because it's covering the entire page, but we can fix that anyhow, and we can specify that the color of the text that is going to be inside of that landing section is going to be white. Okay, I'm going to do again a sanity check because I realize this is taking quite a long time. So like, how is everyone feeling? React with emojis on the chat. Okay. Okay, I see one of, okay. Nice. All right. Okay. I'm going to continue. So here we see that the text here, it's a bit too cramped. Like it's like the background is really sticking to like the text. So we want to add more spacing between that. So for that, we will use padding. So padding, as again, just a reminder, it just adds space between the content and the element itself. So we're going to add a padding of 20 pixel and then run it. Then, ooh, okay. I'm not going to style the rest of this because it's going to take quite a while and I don't want to take too much time from you guys. So let's just go over to JavaScript. Let's skip to JavaScript. All right, JavaScript. Now is the time where you're going to learn how to program. All right, excited for that? All right, so this is an actual programming language. And so I'm going to, instead of using Replit, I'm going to open the web developer tools. And I'm going to run JavaScript code on a console. So to access the web developer tool, you actually just open up your browser, whatever browser you're on. You can open here and then you click on more tools. It might look different on different browsers, okay? I'm on Firefox. So that's something, but every browser should have web developer tools. So you just open that up, then, whoop. Oh yeah, also, I made the screen, the size of this pretty large so you guys can see. For you guys, when you open the web developer tools, which is, you can also open it using Ctrl-Shift-I, or if you're on a Mac, Command-Shift-I. Usually it's like attached here, but you can select a separate window so that it pops up like this, like me. And then you go into tab console and you can start typing JavaScript code. So the reason why we're typing this is that we're able to see immediately the result of our code. Like what we're writing down, it's going to like print out the output for us. Okay, so programming in JavaScript is more complicated than HTML and CSS. If you guys have attended the Python workshop before, you would know some basic. JavaScript is written a bit differently, but yeah. And no worries if you guys don't know any programming at all. I'm going to attempt to teach you guys how it works. Okay, so we have, so first of all, the first thing that you learn as a programmer is how to print hello world. So in JavaScript, how you do that is you use console.log, and then you have these parentheses, and then you put in double quotes. Notice these are double quotes. Single quotes also work, but double quotes, and then hello world. Just type in exactly what I typed and just hit enter. And then it prints hello world. Congratulations, you have your first step as a programmer. Okay. So as you can see, this is a function.
We can't see.
You cannot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wait. I'm really sorry. Okay, thank you for telling me about that. I'm really sorry. Okay, now you guys can see, right? Okay, confirmation, nice. Okay, so here I typed console.log, open brackets, double quotes, hello world. And so this prints hello world. Okay, first step as a programmer, everyone got that? Nice. Okay, so then we also have variables. Okay, so variables are essentially, you can think of them as like a box that stores a value. It stores a data. It's kind of abstract, but you can think of like a box storing apples. That's the value of it. So like, for example, let's say let name equal Bob. Okay, yeah, I'm going to define that. So let is a keyword that you usually use to define variable, or there's also var. There's a difference between them, but I'm not going to go over that. But just write let. And then we have name. Name, here it's just the name of the variable. So in that case, the name of the variable is name. And then we have equal here, which is an assignment operator. Basically what it does is that it assigns the value Bob to name. So now the variable name has the value of Bob. This whole thing is you're defining a variable. Okay, and notice that we again have these double quotes. The double quotes here means that this is a string. A string is a type of data in JavaScript. And you can think of a string as like a text, like just regular text that is just has to be enclosed between these double quotes. If you don't have these double quotes, JavaScript will say, what is Bob? Because it will think that this is the name of a variable. So you need to put double quotes in between. And oh yeah, it says here redeclare because I already defined what Bob is. I already defined what name is. So in order to redefine a variable, like what I mean by redefining it is that we're assigning a new value to Bob. So suppose we have the name Mark. We hit enter. So this redefines the name. So now the value of name is Mark. So in order to use a variable, you just write name and you hit enter, and then it just prints the name of, it just prints the value that is contained inside of that variable. And in that case, it's Mark. Okay, so now that we have this, wait, anyone knows how to fix the HTML not opening in a new tab? What do you mean by the HTML not opening in a new tab? Do you mean Replit? Or are you talking about the web console? Oh, Replit, okay, that's a different thing. So like, so for this one, you usually have to click on open a new tab. I don't know if this button works for you. But you just click on it and then it opens a new tab for you. Is there a problem with that? Is someone in the chat? How did you get to the console? Okay, to get to the console, what you do is you usually have a settings. There's usually a settings button here, right, in the browser, and you open that, and then you find one of the properties, like more tools, and then you click on web developer tools. Or another way you can access this is using CTRL Shift I. So CTRL plus Shift I, and this should open the web console for you. And then after that, you go, the web developer tools. And then after that, you have to click on the tab console in order to use. Okay, I'm not really sure. Also, like, I don't want to delay this workshop too much. So like, if anyone can help him or provide assistance to this person, feel free to do so. I am going to continue on with the workshop. I can help fix problems after the workshop, but for now, I'm just going to go on. Okay, so a variable can hold different types of value. We have seen that it can hold a string. It can also hold a number. So for the sake of that, let's declare a new variable. So this variable is going to have, I don't know, my grade is going to be like 80, I don't know. Let grade equal 80. And so this is an integer. So that means that this thing will have an integer. Notice that we don't have quotes here. Oh yeah, about programming. We can do, we can add stuff together. We can do basic arithmetic. So we can do like grade plus 20 will print 100, because here what it does is that it fetches the value of grade, which is 80, and then it adds it to 20, and 80 plus 20 is equal to 100, obviously. And you can do grade divided by 20, and that will print 4, because 80 divided by 20 is 4. Then you just do this, etc., etc. And then just do more complex multiplication, whatever, which is quite useful. And then finally, another type of value we're going to see is Booleans. So Booleans are either a true or a false. So yeah, it's either true or false. So it doesn't hold any other type of value. So like, let's say like, let is a student. By the way, when you're defining your variable name, make sure to not have any space in it. It should be like just one chain of characters like this and no white space. Okay, and then here, this is gonna, let's say, let is a student be true. And so is a student will be true. Or you can also change it to false. So then is a student is false. Okay, so now let's see conditionals. So sometimes in our code, we want certain parts of the code to be executed only when something is true. So for example, like if is a student is true, then we're going to like say, let's say console.log, I am a student, like this. Okay, and don't worry about the semicolon. Anyways, so this whole code here, I'm going to like stop here and explain to you what this means. So notice that, oh yeah, by the way, if you're typing this onto your console, make sure to press Shift Enter and not like hit Enter immediately, because if you hit Enter immediately, it's just going to enter the first line. You have to hit Shift Enter so that we can write more lines before executing the whole block of code. Okay, so we have here the if words, which means that we're starting a condition. So if is a student is true, so this is the condition. The condition is between parentheses, and then we have curly braces. And inside of the curly braces, we have the code that is being executed if is a student is true. If is a student is true, then whatever is in between these curly braces will be executed. In this case, it will be I am a student. So if you can guess the output of this block of command, it's going to print undefined. Oh yeah, it doesn't print anything. And the reason is because recently we set is a student to false. So because this statement is false, because is a student is false, this block of code is not going to be executed. So suppose we set is a student to true back again. and then we take this code again, and then hit enter. It's going to print out I am a student because this condition was fulfilled. It was true, so the code that is being run here is going to be printed. Okay. So this was for a Boolean value, but you can also do it with other data types. So for example, if grade, remember grade. So if grade is greater than 90, then we're going to print I am a good student. And then what this does is that, yeah, it doesn't print anything because our grade is not over 90. It's unfortunately at 80. Yeah, but if grade is smaller, let's say it's smaller than 90, then I am a bad student. By the way, that is not true. If you get a 80, it doesn't mean that you're a bad student. Okay, so you see here, it prints I am a bad student because our grade, which we define here, is 80, and it's smaller than 90, so it's going to print out this thing. And yeah, we can do it for strings as well. So like if name is equal to Mark, which is basically the double equal here is a comparison operator. So we're comparing name to Mark. So we're saying, is name equal to Mark? Notice that it's different from the single equal operator because the single equal one just basically means that you're assigning a value to a variable. Whereas this one just, it just compares. So here it says, my name is Mark. Hit enter. And yes, because our name is Mark, then it prints out my name is Mark. Okay, great. Okay, now it's a bit over. There's more conditionals to be explored, but I'm just going to cover the basics. So another thing that you might want to use are functions. So functions are just blocks of code that is like inside of a function. So imagine you have a block of code you want to run that you've used several times in your code. So in order to like save, like you don't want to repeat yourself sometimes because these block of code can be like long. So you can save that inside of like a function. You can create a function that will contain that block of code. And when you call that function, it's going to execute the code that is inside. So just to illustrate an example, so let's say I create a function called print hello. Okay, so here, as you can see, what we're doing here is that we're creating a function called print hello. And also just to remind you guys, console.log is a function. So here we have the keyword function to say, oh, we're defining a function. We have the name of the function. We have the brackets here, not brackets, I mean parentheses, to say this is, well, if we have arguments, we're going to put them inside. But like for now, we just have empty parentheses and then curly braces. And curly braces will contain the code that will be executed when we call the function. So this function, what it does is that it prints hello. So we'll just have console.log hello or something. It's not very useful because currently all it does is that it prints hello, whereas we could have just taken this and just printed that. But like if our print hello world was like more complex, it's going to be very useful. Another thing we can do with functions is that we can add arguments. So we can take in arguments. And to take in arguments, so for example, console.log takes in an argument. And the argument is like a string, right? It takes in a string. And what it does is that it prints the string that you just put it inside. So like, let's say we want to say, we want to define a function called greeting. And greeting will greet the person like depending on their name. So let's say we have in between here, we have name and we have hello. We want to say hello to whoever we specified here in name. So here you can think of name that is right here as like a temporary variable, or like it's like a variable that is only in the scope of this function. And so like here we're using whatever is passed in here and we're using it. Oh yeah, I didn't show you guys, this is concatenation. Concatenation is when we're putting two strings together, we're like merging it together and it will just print out a single string. So, okay, I'll show you guys how to use it. So you, as I said, to call a function, you have to write out the function name, you have to write the open parentheses, and then inside of the parentheses, you can write a, you can pass in an argument. So in this case, let's say we want to say greetings to Bob. So greeting Bob. It will say, hello, Bob. So what happened? So basically what it did is that when it saw greeting, it will go inside of the definition of our function. It will read whatever is in between these curly braces and execute it. It will replace name by whatever we provided here, which is Bob. So because this is Bob, it's going to say, hello, Bob, and it's going to print that out for us. Okay, so that's the basic of like functions. Functions can also take in multiple arguments. So like you can say function student that takes in a name and a grade. So hello name, I have a, then just put in grade. Oh no, oops. Oh no. Oh, I was writing something, but it disappeared. So print student. So it will take in as an argument a name. It will take in also a grade. Hello name, I have, and then we just add in grade. And so if you can guess what this does, by the way, you guys can print your guesses of what this will print in the chat if you guys want. And otherwise, I'm going to move on. I'm going to wait until you guys respond in the chat, if possible. Okay, so we have seen functions. What else? Oh, we have loops. Right. So loops are used for whenever you want to repeat a block of code. So suppose for some weird reason we want to print hello world like 10 times or something like that. So we could do like console.log hello world and like copy paste 10 times, right? That's one way of like printing it 10 times. But it's not very it's like there's a lot of duplicate code, right? And it's like painful to write. What if you wanted to print it 100 times? Would you have to like copy paste it 100 times? No, you don't want to do that. So loops are useful for repeating blocks of code. So like if you have something that you want to do many times. So one way of making loops is using a for loop. So here I have keyword for, and then we have the open parentheses. We have, okay, I'll just type something here. So like, let's say we have 100. And I'll explain it later on. Console.log. Okay, as you can guess, this piece of code, what it does is that it prints hello world 100 times, like because of the 100 here. And okay, wait, I'm going to explain through the syntax each part. So var I equals 0 means that we're declaring a variable called I and we're setting it to 0. So that's the initial value of I. And while I is smaller than 100, I is initially 0, I is going to increment. So I plus plus just basically means I plus equal 1, or like, how do you say it? It's going to take in the value of I and it's going to add 1 to it. It's going to increment it. So the next iteration, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on until it reaches 100. And that is, as long as this condition is true, we're going to this, we're going to execute this statement, as long as this condition is true. And so when you hit enter, you print hello world 100 times, and voila. So that's one type of loops. That's a brief overview of loops. Okay, finally, we'll go over arrays. And we may go over objects if we have time. Arrays, so suppose we have, an array. So what is an array? An array is just a list of elements. So usually when you define an array, all the elements that are contained inside of that list has the same property. So like, let's say we define an array called fruits, and it's going to have fruit names. So to do that, you write it simply just like a variable. So you have let fruits and then equal, and then after that, the value that you're going to assign to it, instead of just putting a value, you're going to put in a square brackets. So these open and closing square brackets. And then we're going to put a bunch of strings here, basically. So let's say we have pineapple, bananas, apple, and then what other fruits? Strawberry. Okay, so here we just define a list, or an array, I mean. Okay, so how do we access each element in an array? So to do that, we need to use an index. So each element inside that array has a position. So the first element here, pineapple, has index of 0. Banana has index 1, apple has index 2, and strawberry has index 3. So very important thing to remember here is that the index starts at 0, not at 1. So for example, here we do fruits 0. This is going to return pineapple because what we did here is we called the name of the array, and then we have these brackets here to specify like the index of the element that we want to access. So in this case, we specified 0, and so this is going to retrieve the element at index 0, which is pineapple. So similarly, we can do fruits 1, fruits 2, fruits 3, and then fruits 4. And then, oh, this is undefined because fruits 4, actually index 4 here doesn't exist. So that's why there's nothing here. And we can use a loop to iterate over the array. So like, for example, here we can declare a for loop var I equals 0, I is smaller than fruits.length. This just takes in the length of the fruits, which is 4. There's 4 elements in it. We're going to increment. And then inside here, we're going to print the fruits I. Okay, so essentially what this does is that it starts the index at 0, right? And then every iteration, we're going to print the fruit element that is at this index. So in the first iteration, because I is equal to 0, it's going to print fruits 0. And so it's going to print pineapple. And then because we're incrementing this here, so we're adding 1 to the value of I, it's going to become a 1. So then the next iteration, we're going to print fruits 1, which is banana. and then so on and so forth. We'll print apple, strawberry, and that is the end of the list. So we're going to stop printing things. So as you can see, I just printed all the elements of the list. Okay, so I'm going to stop it for now for the quick crash course into JavaScript. So you guys can again feel free to post in the chat how you are feeling with reactions and emojis, just so that I can get a feel of how everyone's doing. And then I will go over the more useful part, which is how to use JavaScript for web dev. Okay, I see David is giving me a thumbs up. Nice, I like the fish. Fish, someone has weird ears. No, these are hens. Okay. Okay, we're doing great. We're doing great. All right. Nice, nice. Okay. So we covered the basics of JavaScript, which we didn't cover objects yet, but we're going to skip over that. Okay, so now we're going to see why JavaScript is so useful for web development. And JavaScript is really useful because you can make your page interactive, because with JavaScript, you can change the structure of HTML and you can also change the CSS. So to change it, usually you first need to access the DOM elements. So first of all, what is DOM? DOM stands for Document Object Model. So it's like just think of it as like some sort of library code that has already been written for us. Document Object Model. It's just like a library, or like a way of, it's like code that has already been written for us, and we're just using that library to access like the elements that are inside of our HTML file. Okay, and we can use that to change the HTML, and we can also change the CSS. Okay, so let's go to our thing. I'm just straight up going to code here just so that we can speed up the process. Okay, so how can we, okay, we have a script.js here. And if you use the template that they provided to you, they include this JavaScript file at the end here. No, not at the end here, it's here. Okay, so as you can see here, this is a script tag. It takes in a ref. Remember what a ref are? Not ref, I mean attributes. And so this is src. It takes in as an input script.js. Script.js is our file that is here, our JavaScript file, and it's just importing that inside of our HTML so that this code can run. Okay, so suppose I'm going to do some stuff. So I'm going to, let's say we want to change, we want to add some new elements to our page using JavaScript. You can do that using JavaScript. So to do that, we will use document, and then we will use the function getElementById. Okay, so to do that, we're going to write here document.getElementById. You can just hit enter, by the way. So a nice thing about Replit is that when you're writing code here, it can autocomplete for you. So it like gives you suggestions of like the function that you want to type, and you can just hit enter and then it autofills for you. Okay, and then you have open brackets here, not brackets, I mean parentheses. And then you can put in double quotes, and then inside double quotes, you can put like the ID. So what we're essentially doing here is this method, if you hover over it, what it says here is that it returns a reference to the first object with the specified value of the ID attribute. What we're doing here is we're specifying an ID. So like, let's say Angus Burger. Let's go Angus Burger here. Let's give this an ID of 4. Okay. So if we let, okay, remember let is to create a variable. So let's say we create a variable that contains Angus Burger, okay? And it's equal to whatever this function here is going to return. So in the get element by ID, what you pass in as an argument is going to be the ID of the Angus Burger, which is going to be 4. So we're just going to go here and input 4. Okay. So yeah, so this is going to find inside of our document, it's going to go in the index, it's going to go through the HTML file. It's going to find the element that has ID of 4. And then it's going to store that inside of Angus Burger. And so if you want to actually know if it did store it, you can console.log Angus Burger. So suppose we run that. Okay, right now we don't see anything. Oh yeah, here in our console. Oh yeah, also another cool thing about Replit is that it has like a mini, it's like, it has a small web developer tools here. But like if you go in the actual here, you can see here, because we used a console.log, this printed it in the console when we run the code. So it printed the element div ID 4. So you see that here there's quite a lot of like attributes or stuff that we can mess around with. So it has inner HTML, for instance. Inner.html contains just the HTML that is inside of the tag, the div tag that has ID 4. So it contains this thing here. So like suppose that we want to change the content, the HTML content of Angus Burger. So to do that, we call Angus Burger dot, and then we can set inner.html, and we can set it to like h1 nom, you saw nothing. The Angus Burger was already eaten. All right, so what happens if we do that? Okay, let's click on run and let's see what, oh, okay, so now we don't have Angus Burger being displayed anymore. Although we had here a code that had like ID 4 and like it displayed Angus Burger with the price and everything, because we changed it in the script.js, it basically replaced the content that was in here with this. By the way, you can also console.log angusburger.inner.html. Then if you run that, see, this is what is printed. So this is like what it has inside. And because we set the inner HTML to something else, it's going to replace that completely with nom, you saw nothing. Okay, let's not do that because that's not what we want to do. Okay, let's run this again. And then there's nothing. Okay, yeah, so I showed you one way of accessing elements. Oh, but actually, okay, let's just do the website. Let's just do the website. Okay, so what is the thing that we want to implement with the restaurant thing? How do we want to implement this? So as you can see here, we have buttons. And if we inspect the functionality, what we do here is when we add to cart, what it does is that it adds this element here to our list in the basket. So, and then same thing here, it adds it to the basket, burrito adds it to the basket. And then we have here, we compute the sum of all these, the prices, and then we output it here in the total. And then when we press checkout, it just basically resets our basket and like sets it to 0. Okay, so this was just a quick reminder of what we had to do so that we can actually implement this. Okay, so do you guys still have energy for this? I hope you do. All right, let's get this done. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, oh yeah, we haven't seen events. So there's different events. So let's say we have, yeah, let's remove the ID for it here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is that we're going to add a class. We're going to add a class to this element. So to add a class, you basically type in a new attribute. So you do a space inside of the opening tag, you write the name of the attribute, and then for the class name, we're going to say it's to be like add. Oh, actually, no, we don't want this. A quicker way to do this would be to like use onClick. So onClick is like an attribute that mimics like an event listener. And what events are like, basically when you are on the website, there's like a bunch of events that happen. So like, for example, onClick is when you click on the, it's when you click on this. So instead of making it a link so that people will be redirected elsewhere, like they will go to another web page, we want this link to actually just add the item of Angus burger to our list of menu items in the basket. So in order to do that, we will use the onClick attribute, and in the what it takes in here is going to be the name of the function and whatever parameter you're passing, parameter / argument you're passing in. So let's call in what will be this function? Add item. Okay, add item is a function. So whenever this element is going to be clicked, we're going to call the add item function, and we're going to have this .id passed in as a parameter. Okay, okay, you guys might not be like so familiar. I'll explain this afterwards. So like, suppose we do the same thing everywhere here. Okay, so this is for the add to basket button. So what we did here is that we set the ID. Okay, I should also change this. We set an ID for each of these anchor tags. So now they all have an ID. And we also have an onClick event listener, which basically runs this code. It runs this function whenever we click on the link. So, and then it passes this .id. This argument basically is the ID of the object. This refers to the object or the element that we are in currently. And ID is the attribute, the attribute of this. So what we're passing in really is add item 1. So this is the equivalent of add item 1. Okay. So that's what we're doing right now. And similarly here, it would be add item 2, add item 3. So replace this .id with the ID of this element here. Okay. So now we can implement the function of add item this.id, because currently our function doesn't exist. Like add item is just, we just created that. Like for example, if we run it, if we run it, like we'll probably get a warning or an error somewhere. Like I don't see anything, but like let's say we click on add to basket. Add item is not defined. We did not define this function. We need to define it, guys. Okay, don't leave it undefined. All right, so let's recall how we define a function. We write out function first, and then we write the name of the function. So this function is going to be called add item. We want to define add item. Make sure to spell this correctly, because JavaScript or like any programming language is not smart enough. So like if you write add item with like a lowercase and you don't type it exactly like this, it's going to give you an error. It's going to say it's not defined because JavaScript is not smart enough to recognize lowercase. So make sure it's correctly typed. Okay, so remember this is how we create a function. And then in here, we're going to take in as an argument an ID. Okay, so earlier on we saw that we could select elements based on their ID. So like here, this basically what it does is that it retrieves an element with the ID 4 and it stored it in this variable Angus Burger. So we want to do the same thing. So let meal item equal document.get element by ID, and then we're going to enter ID. Okay. So this is going to retrieve the element. So it's going to retrieve an element with the ID that has been passed here, and we're going to find it inside the document. Okay. So now what is our next step? So we actually want to get the info. We want to get Angus Burger and the price of it and like add it to the basket. So in order to do that, I'm going to show you something on the console. So let's go to this part here, reload this. I'm sure this is so big. How do okay. I can zoom out. Okay. Nice. Okay, so we can actually run by the way, you guys can also do document.get element by ID here. So like document.get element by ID, and then it tells us we need at least one argument. So let's say 1. So what 1 does, as you can see, it's already highlighted over here. It selects this button. Okay, and then it returns you this A. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to retrieve the value of the price and the title of the meal item, because we don't know that yet. Like we only have the A tag currently. So to do that, what we can do is we can get the parent of this A tag. So remember how everything is nested inside of HTML? And so like each tag has a parent. And then, oh yeah, each tag has like a parent. And so like if we go, wait, oh my God, sorry, I have experienced some difficulty. Where's this? Oh yeah, index.html. So this A tag, this anchor tag has a parent of a div, because div is like the thing that is like, it's like a wrapper around it. It's like its parent. So we want to get the siblings of A in order to get the values of their siblings. Okay, because Angus Burger, like the meal name and the price currently are siblings of the add to basket anchor tag. So to get the parent, what we do is we can copy the code above and we can say parent node, hit enter, and then notice that this returns the div. And if we hover over div, it selects the whole thing. Nice, right? And then what we can do is we can select the children. So child nodes. And child nodes returns us a list, an array. Remember, array are a list of elements. And so it's quite nice the way that the console outputs it. So as you can see here, this is the index for each element in the list. So like if we were to do this and then access it, again, remember to access an element inside of a list, we need the square brackets. So like, for example, we do 0, this retrieves the first element. We can do also, okay, so right now what we want to do is we want to retrieve the value, the name of the meal item, and also the price, like the cost of the meal. So for that, you can look here at the list, like what we printed here, and we see that we have access to this in the element, in the element at index 1, we can have access to the meal name, and then to access the price, we would have to use the item number 3. Yeah, so for example, like here, if we say 1, then suppose we say inner.html, we get Angus burger. And then if we select 3.inner.html, we get $10.99. Okay, nice. We were able to actually retrieve the values of this. Okay, just a reminder, the reason why we're doing this is that we want to retrieve these values in order to be able to add them to the basket. Okay, so, okay, we can do that. So you can copy that code over. So suppose we take this, we copy it, Control C, and then we go back, okay, no, the wrong document, and we go into our script.js file, and then we declare a new variable here. It's going to contain meal name is equal to this. Okay, so instead of document.get element by ID, because we technically here we have already retrieved the meal item, so we can replace that here with meal item. And then, yeah, so this is going to set us the meal name. Then we're going to set 1 for meal price. And copy that again. Wrong tab here. Replace again this with meal item dot parent node dot child nodes. Okay, so this is nice. Okay. Okay, so one way we can do this is just console.log meal name, console.log meal price. Okay, so we're just going to try this function out, right? Just to make sure that we're not encountering any errors. So let's run this. Okay, so now let's click on this. Okay, now there's the wrong cursor, but whatever. Okay, so when you print, you see? Okay, what it did here is that when I clicked on this, it's going to get the ID, it's going to get this element, it's going to get its siblings values, so Angus burger and $10.99, and it prints it out in the console. Similarly, I can do this, and I can also print the one in the, I cannot do it here, but whatever, you get the concept. Okay, so now that we actually have these values, we can add them to our basket. So for our basket, we're going to declare 2 variables. We're going to let total equal to 0. So total is going to represent the amount of money we currently have, like the, when you buy stuff at a store, like you have a total amount that you need to check out or like pay. So total is going to compute the total amount of money from all the items that we have added to the basket. And then we would have a content in basket. And this is going to be an empty string. Okay, now we're going to define a function that is going to update. It's going to update the content in the basket. So if we go back in our index.html file, okay, and we scroll down, you see here items in your basket. We can add, okay, here we're going to add an ID here. This ID is going to be items of basket, just basket in general. Okay, and it's going to be empty. The reason it's going to be empty is that we're going to actually select this element inside using JavaScript, and then we're going to replace the inner.html with some actual content inside. And then for the total, we can also remove the $0 because we want this to be dynamic. We don't always want it to be displaying $0. So for that, we can use a tag. For this one, I'm going to use span. Span is just a tag that adds inline elements. And for this tag, we're going to add in the ID of total. Right, okay. And then we're not going to put in anything here as well because we're going to change that inside the inside of JavaScript. Okay, so let's declare a function called Updatebasket. And what this function does is that it's going to update the content of our basket. So it's going to, first of all, select the basket content, which is going to, you can use, again, if you guys remember, element by ID. And we're going to select basket because that's the ID here, basket. We're going to select that. We're also going to do the same thing for our total. By ID, total. Okay, and then after that, we can update it. So basket.content.inner HTML, we're going to set this, set it to the content in basket. And then for total, what we're going to do is we're going to set it to total plus, no, we're just going to, wait, we're going to, oh yeah, there's two variables named total. I'm going to say total content. It's important that you don't name your variables the same thing. So total here needs to have a different identifier than here so that we don't have name conflict issues. In JavaScript or in programming language, you cannot have two variables with the same name. Okay, so we're going to say total.content, and similarly, inner HTML, we're going to set it to total. Okay, so this is going to set the value, like the inside, to whatever this is. Okay, so we're going to call Updatebasket as we start our page. And yeah, so after we add an item, we want to update our basket. And we actually have to update the variable values here. So let's, so here we're going to have total plus equal. Oh yeah, okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention here is that here, the value that we're retrieving here, it's a string. So right now it has a $sign in front. So we cannot do additions. We cannot do arithmetic operations with this because like if you open this up here, like if you do +2, okay, this is a string, so it has technically double quotes around it. You see, it doesn't do arithmetic operation properly. It just adds, it appends the 2 at the end of the string. So this is not what we want to do. So we want to get rid of the $sign, and we want to change this to a decimal number. So in this case, it's going to be a float. So a float is a data type that has like decimals, like values after the point. It's not like a whole integer. It has values after the dot. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to say, I mean, we can do it directly from here. Like suppose we have $5.9999. What we can do is call the replace, which is a function say dot replace, and then replace dollar with nothing. Okay, I know this is a new function or method that we call, and you call it on the string, and basically what it does is that it removes the dollar sign. And so now you have 5.99. And then another thing is we have to call a function to parse it into a, God, we have something that shows up. Okay. We're going to use a function called parse float, and this is going to convert it into a float. Okay, so now we have a number. Notice how that is different from a string that we have here that has like 2 quotes in here. So now we can actually use this value to do arithmetic. We can use this to add it to our total. Okay, so we're going to copy paste this here, the value that we got. We're going to go into script.js, not this one. Copy that, and this is going to be like the actual price. So we're going to create a new variable that will contain the value of this operation here. And then we're going to add it to the total. So to add it to the total, we can do total equals total first price, which will take the old total, it will add it to price, compute this together, and then it will store it inside of total again. So basically it's just increasing total by price. Okay, and then finally we also need to change the content in basket value. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to declare a new variable, and this variable is going to contain like what we want to add. So let's say we have let item be a string, and then the string is going to have some it's going to have some HTML inside. So because we're changing the HTML, we're adding something. Okay, so here item, and we're going to have use concatenation. So concatenation is essentially just merging strings together, if you guys remember. So it has the name, Neil name plus price plus K. So we are basically combining each string together. We can also, so we can just say no price like this. And then finally, what we can do is we can add this to our basket. So basket content in basket. Content in basket equals content in basket plus the item. So what this is going to do is it's going to take this string, and then it's going to add it to the content in basket. And then when we call the function Updatebasket, it's going to run the code inside of Updatebasket, and then it's going to basically update what we have in the DOM. It's going to update what we have in the HTML, and it's going to add this. So is everyone following me so far? Post your reactions again in the chat. So meanwhile, I'm going to run this. Oh no, we have an error. Document.getElementById is not a function. At line 11. Okay, time to debug. Wait, this is not working. Yeah, sometimes you get errors like this. It's not a function. How come? For replace? Okay, wait. hold up. I'm going to move this to the side of the screen. Document dot get element by ID. This is definitely a function. I wonder why this is not a function. Coding errors. This we all experience it as programmers. Don't worry. Get element by ID. Okay, you know what? One way to solve this is to search up document get element by ID. It's not a function. By the way, if you guys know why I'm encountering this error, you can tell me. This is jQuery. I'm just going to search up a way to fix this. Oh, I'm using it on another element rather than the, hold up, line 11. Did I redefine document? In line 19, should it be meal price instead of $5.99 price? Wait. Oh, yeah. Here it should be meal price. You're right. You're correct. Yes. I forgot to replace that. And yes, because we are changing the meal price to have this. I mean, I know this is not going to change the thing. Oh, I know why. I did a spelling mistake. Right, it's get element with an ENT. Okay, yeah. So you see, programming, you make some stupid errors and this thing happens, but now it works. Okay, that was fast. Okay, so now when we click on add to basket, oh wait, hold up. Here we cannot see it. I don't know, for some reason this is not, okay, wait. This is showing, okay. Right, now let's reload this. Okay, so now you can see the bottom of the screen and we can click on add to basket. And you see, oh my God, Angus Burger, $10.99 has been added to the total. It has been added. Oh my God, our code works. Oh my God. Okay, and you can do the same thing. So like add French fries, add burritos, and then you see the price. The price gets incremented. Oh my God, our code works. Oh my God, mind blown. Okay, all right. So now, what's the final step? So our final step is, it's really simple. There's a checkout button here. I know I didn't style it and it doesn't look like a button at all, but let's make it a button. So when you click on it, you want to reset everything. So that you empty out every item inside of your basket. So to do that, we can go in, I think, and let's declare a new function. Oh no, wait. First, let's go to index.html. We have a checkout, and we can add on click. So on click again. Just a reminder for everyone, this just to add an event listener, a click event listener more specifically, so that when we click on this button, it's going to call in a function. So let's call this function checkout. And then inside of script.js, of course, we need to define the function checkout. Okay, so inside of the function checkout, what we want to do, we just want to reset our basket to, like, we just want to reset this to this. So what we do is just we copy paste this. We remove the let. So why do we remove the let? We remove the let because we have already initialized these variables. So we have already declared them. No, to be more specific, yeah, we have already declared them. So we cannot declare them again. And so to change the value of it, you just say the name of the variable, set it equal, and then you just enter the value. So you don't need to have the let keyword again. Okay, so now that we reset it, it's just a simple call of Updatebasket. So as you can see, having functions is actually very useful because now that we have Updatebasket, we have been able to save many lines of code because like here we call Updatebasket, here we call Updatebasket, here we call Updatebasket. So if we didn't have the function Updatebasket, we would have to copy this entire code and we would have to like paste it everywhere we called it. And that would just be very hard to read, right? So that's why functions are so useful. Like it allows you to like save a lot of code, and also it's much more legible. Okay, so now we have implemented the function checkout, and this should work as expected. And sorry, by the way, for running over time. I notice it's like 9:39, but we are almost there. So let's add some items to the basket. Then let's click on checkout. Oops. Oh no, checkout doesn't work. Oh no, did we encounter another? Did I not refresh this tab correctly? Click checkout. Nope, it does not work. Why does it not work? Another bug. All right, let's check this. Oh yeah, probably because I didn't add those two parentheses here. So let's run this again. Yeah, make sure that this is calling like a function. So let's add to basket and then check out. It works. Oh my god. Okay, now we have like everything added. Like, yay! We can add as many items. Like, and then this is. Oh yeah, by the way, if you guys are wondering why this is like really weird, like why is there like 0.00005 at the end, is that it's because there's like a float in precision, so that when it's adding, like there's like, I don't know, JavaScript does this, but like don't worry about it. But yeah, so you have this, and then when we click on checkout, it clears the basket for us. Yay! So we have implemented all of our major features. I mean, we can add more stuff, obviously. Like for example, let's say here we don't, because right now we're not displaying anything in items in your basket, like when there's no item actually in the basket. So one way we can do this is, let's say we can add a conditional. So like, let's say here if, so like, I know it's a bit useless, but like, let's say if content in basket is equal to empty string, so which means that content in basket is empty, we're going to set content in basket inner HTML to there is currently no meals in the basket. And then we can also add else clause. But yeah, I forgot to tell you guys what an else clause is, but like else clause is, it runs whenever like this statement is false. So if this statement is false, it's going to run whatever is in the else clause. So we're going to print this instead. So like if content in basket is empty, we're going to say that there's currently no meals in the basket. And if it's not empty, we're going to print whatever is in the content of the basket. And so now let's run this. And reload this. Reload this. Oh yeah, why doesn't it? Oh yeah, this has no property. That's right. Oops, I called the wrong. This is the wrong variable. So I'm supposed to call this one because this is actually it's a element that exists inside of the DOM. This here doesn't exist in the DOM. because this is just a variable we just declared inside of JavaScript. This is something that exists in the DOM, in the document. Okay, so let's run this again. And then there is currently no meals in the basket. And if we add this, notice that this replaces and it removes it. And then if we check out, there's no current meals in the basket. All right, so that wraps up essentially what I did. I know that it doesn't look as like fancy as this, but just that we are running out of time currently. I hope you guys have learned something out of this workshop. Like learn a bit of JavaScript, and there's plenty of other stuff to discover. Like for example, here there's different events. We covered what click on element is, but there's also key down, scroll, mouse over, mouse out, load, etc. There's so many more of them. So I would recommend, like, if you guys are interested in like learning more about web dev and learning more about those different tags that I covered, because I know there was a lot of tags, a lot of properties, and a lot of functions you guys had to learn this. It's a lot, I admit, but this is like a crash course. So you guys can check out the documentations. This website has pretty good documentation, and you can just essentially learn how to, like, it's very detailed, and it gives you an explanation of each tags that we have seen. And you can do the same for CSS. CSS, you can, here, it tells you how to do, this is inline styling, etc. And there's just a lot, yes. And finally, yeah, so these are other resources that I recommend. Stack Overflow for getting your questions answered. And yes, otherwise, this is the end of the workshop. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And thank you very much for attending this workshop. And in case if you guys are wondering the cat where it comes from, it's just someone who drew this for me. So yes. All right. So thank you for attending this workshop. I'm going to stop recording now. Let's see. Stop recording.